Hey, campfire crew, let's get it on. Recurring Dream, submitted by Mange Lacrotte. The story took place in the 80s. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old at the time. I only remember our car ending up in someone's front lawn. The rest I heard from my parents talking about the incident for years after. For almost 3 or 4 months straight, my father always told my mother about a reoccurring dream that he was having. Sometimes he would just be going to the bathroom and get extremely tired and literally fall asleep on the throne. As soon as he closed his eyes, he would have a dream or a vision of him driving with my mother, my brother, and me on the highway. In the dream, he would see a brown 1980 Toyota Corolla lose control and then slam into our car, and he would wake up in a sweat. My father could describe exactly where this would happen on Highway 17. He would see nearby houses, and he always mentioned one was a red brick house with a Camaro parked in the yard. He described it as being an overcast day with a light snowfall. I mean, his dream was in detail. One day, we were all in the car driving, and out of nowhere, my father yelled, "Hell no!" and swerved right off the road into a yard. Sure enough, my father recognized everything from his vision or dream, whatever you want to call it. As he drove us off the road, there was a brown Toyota Corolla that collided with a dump truck he was passing and bounced right into our lane. My father had swerved even before the collision happened. He knew precisely what was going to happen and where he had to steer to prevent the accident. And sure enough, we ended up in a yard less than 40 feet away from a Camaro and a red brick house. Pandemic, submitted by Leo the Gamer. This took place on November 21st, 2018, and that'll be important. This might be hard to believe, but every word I'm about to tell you is the honest truth. It started on a night I'll never forget. I drifted off to sleep, only to find myself swallowed by a dream so stark and so unnerving, it felt more like a premonition. The world around me was pitch black, so dark it was almost suffocating. At the center of this endless void stood a lone, ancient television set, the bulky wood-framed kind from decades ago. Its screen flickered with endless static, that familiar grating snow buzzing and humming in the silence. It was the only sound. For a long time, the static raged. But then, cutting through the chaos, a single word materialized from the blizzard of noise. Pandemic. I jolted awake, heart-pounding, confusion knotting in my chest, and I had no idea what that meant. It was just a weird dream, I thought. Maybe it meant nothing. But then the dreams kept coming. A week later, I was back in that black void. The same ghostly television hissing in front of me. This time, the static shifted and another word emerged, crackling through the noise like a whisper from something unseen. 19. Again, I woke up even more disturbed than before. But again, I shrugged it off. At the time, I wasn't really keeping up with the news. I had no frame of reference for any of this. 2 more weeks passed. Another dream. Same blackness, same TV, same suffocating sense of something coming. The word this time? Global. I woke up shivering. The pieces were stacking up, but I couldn't yet see the picture they were forming. And finally, 2 weeks after that, the last dream came. I stood once more in the endless darkness, the static roaring in my ears. I knew something was about to happen. I could just feel it. The word that carved itself through the noise, slow and deliberate, was COVID. And then the dream stopped. Life went on. I didn't tell anyone about what I had seen in my sleep, and honestly, I didn't even know how to explain it without sounding insane. But then came January 21st, 2019. I was casually watching the news when I heard it. Those two chilling words, COVID-19. Suddenly, every dream I'd had snapped into focus like a jigsaw puzzle clicking into place. I mean, it wasn't random and it wasn't meaningless. Somehow, in the depths of my mind, or maybe beyond it, I had been warned. I mean, even now, just writing this out sends shivers down my spine. I've kept this secret buried for so long because, frankly, I didn't think anyone would believe me. I mean, hell, sometimes I don't even believe it myself. But there it is. My truth, take it or leave it. Stay safe out there, y'all. The world is a stranger place than we like to admit. The Woman on the Beach, submitted by Frunkus East. Right after I graduated college, I decided to visit some friends in the panhandle of Florida for some beaches, beers, and babes, as we called it. I had a job lined up that started the second week of June, so with some time to kill, I drove down from Philly to stay with my friend Chris and his roommates Mike and Ruben. Chris had moved away from our hometown sophomore year of high school, but we stayed close over the next few years as we really had become best friends. Still are. His new crew down in Florida was really cool too, and eventually all three of them started a very lucrative pool cleaning, installation, and repair business that's still going strong today. This story happened in 2004. I arrived on a Wednesday night, and they were all just getting out of work, so we went out to eat and hit a bar to watch some NBA playoffs. I was lamenting about just getting dumped, and yeah, how's that for honesty? I didn't break up with my girlfriend, I got dumped. And the guys were telling me there were lots of ladies down there for hookups or who knows what. I mean, maybe one would convince me to move down there. Yeah, right on the ladder. The next day, they all had work, so I planned to walk the mile or so to the beach and just get some sun on my own while they were gone for the day. While I was just sitting there reading a book, I got sleepy, so I quickly got up, jumped in the water to wake up a bit, and then crashed back into the beach chair for a snack and a beer. The tiredness came back, and I felt myself drifting in and out of sleep. You know, that sound of waves crashing, the occasional kid or family walking by. Man, I love that sound and feeling. It was exactly what I needed. Then I looked down the beach and saw a woman about my age standing there looking out across the water. And I don't know if I had just started daydreaming or what, but I had this sudden crystal clear image in my head. It was like I was suddenly about 10 feet from her. She had this awful face on, like she was super angry about something. And then she started yelling something I couldn't make out. And right after that, she turned to look at me, and I could see fire in her eyes and a frown on her face. But it changed right away. She quickly smiled at me and flashed these gorgeous blue eyes at me. And then she started walking towards me, but she kept looking back over her shoulder and nodding at someone I couldn't see. When she looked back at me, she was still smiling, but it was an unsettling smile, like a Cheshire cat smile. Then, suddenly, I was back in reality or whatever. The woman was still looking out across the water, and it was like she had never looked at me at all. And I got up, and when I looked back, she was walking away from me with some guy that seemed to come out of nowhere. I shrugged and didn't think of it again and headed back to Chris's place to get cleaned up and get ready to go out that night. That night, we went to dinner and then to a local spot that all the guys swore by. It was kind of two different places mixed into one. Up front was a chilled, laid-back bar, and in back it was louder with dance music and lots more people. Chris introduced me to some women that he knew, and Ruben had brought his girlfriend and some of her friends along. Now look, I wasn't looking to hound dog, but I wasn't going to say no to anything either. It was just a fun night of drinking and talking and dancing. A little before last call, though, was when things got weird. I was talking to one of the girls and we were laughing about something when over her shoulder, I saw the woman I had seen on the beach or in my head or whatever. She was looking at someone else with that same angry face I had seen earlier in my mind, and she was speaking harshly to someone. Over the music and everything else, I could hear someone yelling back at her. And suddenly she turned to me and smiled, those blue eyes looking right at me. She'd held up a hand to the person she had been yelling at and walked over to me, but every once in a while looked back over her shoulder. She had beautiful eyes, but I still felt something was wrong. She introduced herself to me and spent the next few minutes trying to get to know me, and then asked if I could walk her to her car. She said there was some guy that had been bothering her, and she was nervous to go to her car by herself. But something told me to not do it. Fuck chivalry. I told her she could walk with our group as we were leaving, but she wasn't having that. She implied that she would make it worth my while if I walked her. But I said no, despite how hot she was. Then she got angry again. The fire was in her eyes. She called me a pussy. The other girls we were with stepped in and told her to beat it, and after more yelling and swearing at me, this strange woman walked back into the crowd. We all looked at each other like, well, that was fucked up, and then made our way out of the place. Everyone was making plans to come to Chris's place the next night for a get-together, and everybody went home. The next night, a bunch of people got to Chris's house, and we had a really fun cookout. Someone had turned a TV on to catch the game, and the news was just finishing up. And my blood froze as I looked at the screen. It was a mugshot of the woman who I had seen on the beach and in my head and at the club. She and 3 other guys had been arrested for mugging and beating the shit out of some guy the night before, not far from the place we were at. From what I gathered, she had lured the guy into an alley, and then her pals went to town on the guy. They didn't get very far. Someone saw them, and they were all arrested. My friends all stopped and looked at me, and I just said, "Damn, dodged a bullet there, huh?" That's by far the strangest thing that's ever happened to me. I don't know how everything on this planet works, but something that day told me to beware. And whatever it was that was telling me that, I'm glad it did. Strange Feelings by Great Stone Drake. I've had feelings my whole life, subjects big and small. An example by what I mean is small. I was in a pure panic one night, just terrified for no reason I could give other than something was wrong. It was 3 a.m. and there was a knock on the door. I looked out and it was a cop. I answered the door and the officer explained that the lights were on in my car and he thought I'd rather get woke up than possibly get fired in the a.m. for not being able to get to work. I was fine after that. On to the biggest example. When I was 16, I wanted to go to the county fair with my friend April. My parents wanted to go out, so they agreed, but my dad and I had a small argument. He said I had to be home at 10 and no going anywhere but the fair, period. April and I went to the fair and rode a lot of rides and had a good time. We ran into a few guys we knew and had been walking around with them. They asked us to go to the country kitchen with them, and I reminded April I couldn't go. My parents were fairly abusive, so not minding had grave consequences. But they all promised they would get me home by 10 o'clock. Without them, I had no other way to get home, so I reluctantly agreed. I knew I was in trouble, but wasn't super worried. I didn't really want to go. One of the guys was my ex-boyfriend, and I just wasn't in the mood for that shit. And all of a sudden, I had a dreadful feeling fall over me. I mean, a literal wave from head to toe of hot, shaky queasiness. I begged them to take me home because I was feeling internally ill. When I got home, every light in my house was on and my parents weren't there. The light thing was new and never acceptable. I turned all the extra lights off and went to bed watching TV, and I felt miserable. Several hours later, my grandmother shook me awake and told me to get dressed and go downstairs. I immediately knew things were bad, so I got dressed and went down there. The house I grew up in had a 2-part stair with a switchback landing halfway down. Above this landing was a leaded glass window, and since it was dark outside, I could see a man in uniform at the bottom reflected in the glass. As I rounded the corner, my grandmother came out of the kitchen and said, "Put your shoes on. Your mom and dad were in a wreck, and Jim died." Turns out that they had decided to come home to wait for me to come home, and then they were going to a restaurant about 30 minutes away. On that road on Highway 69, there was a long, deceptive curve that had caused many a wreck. Apparently, my mom undid her seatbelt in the truck to slide next to my dad, and they were struggling to find the new seatbelt while speeding and quite drunk. They drifted into the other lane. A semi coming toward them honked his horn, and my dad overcorrected, and they went flipping end over end into a field. From the time they left home, which was verified by the other couple they had been with that evening, to where the wreck would have happened in the time where I was deathly terrified for no reason, were one and the same. Hey gang, I thought I would share something a little personal. I don't think they would be premonitions, but something interesting that did happen to me twice in my life, both involving my grandmothers. Before I get into that, hey everybody, thanks for hanging with me here, getting through this pneumonia. I'm starting to feel better, but I'm taking it slow, so I'm taking it a little easy here. I apologize for the shorter episode here. Probably have a few more of these as I get my feet back under me and my lungs pumping the way that they're supposed to be, so I appreciate you guys sticking around. When my father's mom, the grandmother I was closest to, got sick, she had cancer, and we knew she was going. I mean, it wasn't a big surprise. But, obviously didn't know when or what was going to happen. For a couple of years in high school, I worked at Burger King. Super awesome, illustrious job. Had a lot of fun there, a lot of funny stories. Funny how I got hired, funny how I got fired, but that's for another time. But I remember having a dream. And this is after I stopped working there. I was now working in construction and stuff when I was in college. But I had a dream that I was back at Burger King, and we had a vestibule out front. And every once in a while, they would send somebody out to do the maintenance out there, clean the baseboards and all that kind of thing. And in this dream, I was cleaning the baseboards, and the door opened, and my grandmother came in, and she saw me, and she just smiled at me and said, "Hey, say a prayer for me while you're down there on your knees." And then she went into the restaurant. Now, my grandmother never went to Burger King, all right? I don't think she was ever there when I worked there. But when I woke up, went to my construction job and came home, still thinking about this crazy dream, that's when I got the news about halfway through the day that my grandmother had passed away that morning, probably right around the time that I was having that dream. So a little odd there. The second story came a couple of years later, and this time it was my mom's mom, who I was still close with, but not as close as my father's mother. I had just left the bar that I worked at, wasn't working, but was with my girlfriend, and we were going to another bar that had some food, and we were going to just hang out there for the rest of the night. And we were crossing the street, and I remember seeing an older woman walking across the street. It was rainy, and it was just kind of a gloomy sort of night. And I remember saying we should help that lady cross the street. And we kind of went over, and she was already like halfway across anyway, but we kind of walked behind her to just make sure that she got across to the other side. I don't even think she knew we were there. Then we went to this other joint, went back to my house and crashed out. And at about 5:30 or 6 in the morning, our house phone rang. I lived with 4 other guys. 3 other guys? 3 other guys. I don't even remember. Fuck, I'm old. And we had a phone downstairs, and I had my own phone in my room. And I remember answering it. And before I answered it, my girlfriend was waking up, and I looked at her, deadpan, and just said, "My grandmother's dead." And my girlfriend at the time was like, what are you talking about? This is like Sunday morning. Just answer the phone. And I answered the phone, and it was my dad. And my dad said, hey, your grandma's passed away. Probably should think about getting back here. I just was dumbfounded and looking at my girlfriend at the time and be like, holy shit. And she was like, man, that is really fucking freaky. And, but yeah, so premonitions, telling the future, I don't really know, but I just wanted to share those two kind of offbeat, weird personal stories with you guys. And not that scary or anything, but a little odd, just like all the other stories I narrated here on this episode. Thanks again for listening. I really appreciate it. If you've got a true scary story of any nature that you'd like me to narrate, email it to Uncle Josh, truescarystories@gmail.com. I read them all. If you're checking this out on YouTube and you like what you heard, give the video a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, why don't you do that? That would be awesome. Maybe even tell a friend about what I'm doing. That would be great. Follow me on social media, and if you'd like to support what I'm doing even further, find a link to my Patreon page, and consider getting some Uncle Josh and Campfire Crew merchandise. There's a link to my storefront at tpublic.com down there as well. That might be changing shortly, so watch for that change, and I'll keep you notified of it. But hey, get some Campfire Crew merchandise, man. You'll be the coolest cat on the block. Everyone, be excellent to each other. And until next time, be wary of things that go bump in the night. It could be anything. A ghost, a monster, or the guy next door.